All right, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the final five games for the Florida Gators this upcoming fall. Well, I shouldn't say this upcoming fall. We technically are in fall, but what I mean is like after the bye week, the final five games after the bye week. Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. And what this video is going to be about is, does a bowl game save Billy Napier's chances of coming back in 2025? Does it warrant it? In other words, Billy Napier's fate, in my opinion at least, lies in these final five games. So Florida's at 4-3 right now, and miraculously, they're at 4-3 after the way the first three games started. You know, they get their victory against Sanford, which is completely unimpressive at all because you expect that. But getting blown out by Miami and Texas A&M with their backup quarterback at home, it really seemed as if Florida was going to end. Was going to look kind of like what Florida State looks like this year. You know what I mean? It was 1-2 start, getting embarrassed at home twice. It looked like the season was hanging on by a thread, but Florida has seemed to bounce back, and really it seems as if the players are still bought into Billy Napier, which is a good sign whenever a head coach is on the seat, is that you wonder if the players are still bought into the head coach of the football program, and the players are. When you see the way they celebrate their victories against UCF, you see the way they celebrate their victories against Kentucky, and the way they performed against Tennessee, albeit a loss, but it was a close loss that the team seemed super dialed in for. It appears as if the team is still bought in on Billy Napier, and that should be taken into account when you're evaluating him. But the thing is, I shouldn't say for me personally, because when I say for me, it means I'm speaking from a personal standpoint. For me, the only record, in my opinion, that should demand, and I'm not just saying, oh, okay, you know what, after this we can bring back. I'm not like, oh, we should definitely bring him back. Like, that's what I mean by demand. The only record that should demand his return is if he somehow finishes the year 8-4. For me, that's I know it may seem like a very unfair expectation, but I think it's demanded when you consider all the debacles that have happened under Napier the last 2 years, or I guess you could say 2.5 if you want to include the Tennessee game and the Miami and Texas A&M game. With the level of incompetence and the bad losses and the heartbreaking losses and the completely disheartening performances that Florida has had underneath him, I think 8-4 is a very understandable demand, because at Florida you expect more than just celebrating wins against Mississippi State, UCF, and Kentucky. Those are victories that you should expect every single year, and you should be tough enough to beat a Tennessee team that was performing rather not up to par in that first half. Good Florida teams would have blown out that Tennessee team in the past. And other Tennessee fans have said that themselves. They said that there were Florida teams that would have blown Tennessee out in the past if Tennessee had performed the way that they did. And I agree. The 2018 Dan Mullen Florida squad would have smoked Tennessee in that first half. 2019, hell, in my opinion, I would even say some of the Will Muschamp teams would have blown out Tennessee in that first half. So for Napier, I think he should get an 8-4 record in order to demand his return. And that's the record I think Florida, if he were to do that, Florida fans would be excited to have him come back. 7-5, you still have that question mark. 7-5, you would still have that. Should we really bring him back just because of 7-5 record? I mean, that's not the Gator standard. 7-5 is not the Gator standard by far. 8-4 isn't really a Gator standard. 9-3 is like okay, but that's what we should demand as Florida fans. Now, let's get into the final 5 games here. Georgia, I can tell you right now, I do not expect a victory. Texas, I don't expect a victory either. LSU, I think your chances are a little bit better, but I still don't expect a victory. Ole Miss, I'm actually closer to that game being a toss-up than I am expecting a loss as I am with Georgia, Texas, and LSU. And FSU, that's a certain victory. Well, I shouldn't say certain victory. As close to a certain victory as Florida has had since the Samford game. I actually had more fear that Florida was going to lose to Mississippi State a few weeks back than I have of them losing to Florida State. Florida State is just god-awful. But that's another whole nother video. With this record, with this final 5 games of the year, the final 4 games, the next upcoming 4 games, because Florida State's completely fallen off. But the next 4 games, that right there is what's really going to show you if Billy Napier truly is the guy or not. And that's why I made a video way back in the summer saying that the Tennessee game, in my opinion, was your most important conference game of the year on the road in a big test like that, and what was likely going to be primetime action. And that game was going to give you an indicator of how Florida was going to look in their final 5 games. Granted, we all thought, a lot of football fans thought that FSU was going to be a lot better than what they are. I said Florida State was going to go 7-5, but I didn't think they were going to get 6 losses at this point of the season. I mean, I hate Florida State, but I didn't even expect them to be this bad. Nobody on planet Earth that follows college football, in my opinion, expected Florida State to be this bad. Not Vegas, not anybody. But I digress. If Billy Napier is going to come back, the Florida State victory, that's a lock. So that's going to put you at 5. You're going to have to win the Ole Miss game to become bowl eligible, because I don't think Ole Miss has performed up to the preseason expectations that everybody expected. Because they're 5-2, they're still in the top 25, but what's the signature win for Ole Miss this year? Wake Forest, going on the road and beat South Carolina. Granted, South Carolina is a tough team. They're not necessarily good, but they play hard. They play tough. They blew out Kentucky. They went toe-to-toe with LSU. They went toe-to-toe with Alabama. So they could have had a better record than what they are right now. They could be in the top 25 right now if they had closed out those 2 games. But Ole Miss, to me, has not looked that impressive for a top 25 team. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if Florida found a way to beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss, to me, is very beatable for a 5-2 team. LSU. Now, LSU in the first 3 weeks I thought was definitely beatable because they barely won on the road at South Carolina and obviously lost to USC, not UCF, USC 2 weeks prior. And they seem like to have rightened the ship, so to speak. Came off that big win against Ole Miss in the Magnolia Bowl. It is at home, but LSU has dominated this matchup as of recent. And LSU, in my opinion, with Garrett Nussmeier, they're just clicking on certain cylinders that I don't think that this Florida team has clicked on, even in the middle of their 3 wins over 4 game stretch. I just think LSU is still the better team. But they're not impossible to beat. I still think you have a better chance of beating them than you do of Texas or Georgia. So is 7-5 good enough to bring Napier back? For the institution, probably. For me, no. I need an 8-4 record, like I said. And I'm not going to switch off of that. I was okay with 7-5 before the season started. Getting blown out by Miami and getting blown out by Texas A&M, I said, no. Now you need to go 8-4. Because I just can't accept those losses. And by the way, majority of the opponents you have either faced this year or still have yet to play this year, you're going to face them next year. Because you're still going to face Miami and Florida State next year out of conference, and the conference schedule that you have this year is going to be the same as next year, except the home games that you play against will be on the road. So you're at home for LSU, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. Well, you're going to be on the road for those games. And you were on the road this year with Mississippi State, Texas, and Tennessee. Now you're going to be at home for those games. So you're going to get the same schedule, SEC schedule, along with Georgia in the neutral site. You're going to get the same SEC schedule that you got this year as next year. So to me, the way you play in these games is going to be not only an indication of where the program is headed under Napier, and it's going to be an indication of where it will be next year. Now, the benefit of next year is this. If you bring Napier back, you'll have DJ Lagway getting a second year in the offense, in which the offense has performed better under him. He's developed a nice rapport with the running back, Jaden Ball. The offensive line seems to have improved this year, and you will be bringing Rob Sale back. The defense is making certain strides, and I understand it gets some bad offenses because Tennessee's offense to me is not really that good. Kentucky's not a good team. UCF is not a good team. Mississippi State is a terrible team. But considering how bad the defenses have looked before, it's still an improvement one way or another. But that's really about it. I wasn't gonna try to make this video too long. Yeah, the final 5 games is going to be what decides Billy Napier's fate, and it's all or nothing. And that's what you see in the title and the thumbnail, all or nothing. Billy Napier's fate lies in these final 5 games, and we'll see how things end. So that's really about it. Thanks for listening.